What do you think about, the Man United manager gets sacked, £15 million payoff?
That's a payoff of success, is it?
No.
That's the price of failure.
Amazing, isn't it? Football's an extraordinary world.
It is quite...
Yeah, but...
Is he a working person?
I shouldn't think
I don't
so.
think he's worried about the postman coming to the door, is he?
That's right.
Well, he's not working now. He's not working now.
My fear is, because he's Dutch, he won't pay tax here. I'd quite like, 45% of that back in tax, but we almost certainly won't get it. But it shows you football is a huge... Certainly at the top level, the Premiership level, because of the TV money, states coming in, rich Americans... It's silly money. But would you turn it down if you had the opportunity?
No,
you wouldn't.
Contracts that are in place,
did he win anything?
The FA Cup.
The way it works in football is if you have a manager, you think, when we win the Champions League, and then another team will try and poach our manager.
Right.
And therefore you have to have in the contract that they have to buy you out if you succeed.
Yeah.
But the symmetry is when he fails... he gets the same compensation paid.
That's
how it works.
But Manchester United, they were so dominant in English football, British football, pretty dominant in European football for so long under Alex Ferguson. They've lost their way since. They've just been spending money as if it's going out of fashion to try and buy that success, and they haven't. And Ten Hag's taken them to the cleaners.
So talking about not spending money...
as well, 3 hours later.
Talking about not spending money... we should probably move to the budget. We were talking yesterday about...
Think of what that 15 million could have done for the NHS. That would have paid for a few hip replacements, quite a lot.
Probably some capital gains tax to pay on that. Yesterday we had the story that the £2 cap on bus fares was going to be abolished. The Prime Minister confirmed yesterday it's going to go up to £3.
50% increase.
Isn't it kind of surprising that, as part of your run into the budget... the winter fuel allowance being taken away, bus fares going up. It's an unusual approach to politics and budget making to sort of pick such...
It's a car crash
to understand...
or a bus crash in this case.
It's not a normal way to do a budget, is it?
No, and to brief, first of all, brief it out, and then two, the Prime Minister confirm it when he was asked yesterday. It was one of my colleagues at the Mirror. And... because it is bad news. And look, who uses buses? By and large, people on lower incomes use buses. Now, the elderly will be protected because they have their free passes, but there'll be a lot of people going to work or going to visit friends, going to the hospital, whatever it is, using buses. In London, the fare is capped at £1.75, so it doesn't affect people in London. The rest of the country needs the London transport system. But this is a big problem for regional mayors, all those Labour regional mayors in the West Midlands and Greater Manchester.
Didn't the Greater Manchester Mayor, Andy Burnham, take the buses back into control of the...
He has, with his B network.
And now he's been...
But is there some...
another word you were going to use.
But is there some clever politics I'm missing?
No. This should be very unpopular, and this is going to hit... working people.
Yeah, so nearly 30% of the poorest households don't have access to a car. And if you're trying to encourage people to use the bus to get out to work, to be able to do that in a cost-effective way...
£10 extra a week, there and back,
it was costing...
£40 a month.
It was costing £300 to £400 million a year.
Which is small beer.
To subsidise it.
Small beer.
But I think it is, in terms of the... economic benefits, the social benefits.
Yeah.
And also, if we want to get more people out of their cars... better for the environment too. Get them in buses.
What about this green crusade of Ed Miliband's? We've all got to have solar wind panels and all this. This is a basic thing, getting people on buses.
It should be encouraging and paying and expanding public transport, not cutting it back. Around Europe, all the big cities, it's what they're doing to try and get... It's a better environment, as well as allowing people to get around. It's not just the fact they've announced it before the budget, which I think is stupid.
Well, and this
is the very
is
fact
what
they're doing it.
Sir Lindsay Hoyle has given Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor, a telling off for, isn't it? For going around the world telling everybody about key details.
Yeah.
He's questioned whether MPs would need to bother attending the House to hear this first budget, given we've heard it all already, because there's not supposed to be these leaks,
We used to have something called PERDA.
Yeah.
And I remember you famously, Kevin, you got the entire budget one year.
We did. You get it leaked.
And it caused ructions. It would be no point now, because it's all been leaked.
I was talking at 6 o'clock about Hugh Dalton. 1947, having to resign. On the Labour's last Etonian Chancellor.
Yeah. Loose chat about...
and it went on what we called the old stop press on the back of the Evening Standard. Yeah. And he lost his job because he told somebody about one tax.
But look, it hasn't just started with Rachel Reeves. Well, actually, Gordon Brown was pretty good at it. Ken Clarke before him, who was a Conservative. But
you're saying that Ed Balls used to lead?
I think actually started with Alistair Darling more. Alistair Darling was the first person to really do a lot of stuff. We were much more cautious.
But Jeremy Hunt's last budget, Conservative Chancellor, we were thinking, what's going to be the rabbit out the hat? He briefed so much. No, and there was nothing. The entire budget has been given away.
So I don't understand, because it just gives, media outlets, we're sat here chatting about it, aren't we? Gives everyone a chance to chew it over, to talk about it.
And it's all been so negative as well. That's the trouble. I mean, this is the longest period between an election and a budget. It's so negative.
This is why we're getting the NHS money now. You're beginning to get the positive.
So they're saving all the good stuff?
Yeah, but we as journalists and politicians, members of the public, viewers, would be wondering what's in the budget. So we would be generating stories and doing our digging and speculation. So what the Treasury does now is, Downing Street do, is they brief.
So it's to shut down the speculation?
Yes. Inform it at times. Although in this budget there's been a lot that's been tosh, or we think tosh, like you're going to tax pension contributions by employers. Just doesn't look like it's going to happen. But for days, that was in TV, radio and the newspapers.
The extra money for the NHS is the big good idea. Why is it on all the front pages this morning?
I'm not sure.
Is that the headline that they would want?
It isn't going to improve the NHS enough.
I'm not sure if we can show it, but the photo of Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves, which is in the Mail and in the Daily Star, the Daily Star headline is glum and glummer.
Yeah.
I mean, it is the most... Look at that.
Unbelievable.
If you're saying that is a photo opportunity to show good news...
What, has Larry the cat died in Downing Street?
You wouldn't exactly say that was a good news photo.
They're just talking everything down. I mean, no wonder there's a poll somewhere today saying he's the most unpopular Prime Minister in such a short space of time.
So there's been a net drop of 49 points in his popularity, from +11 to -38. That is the biggest recorded for a new Prime Minister.
He's making Liz Truss look
This is
popular.
a really unfortunate start.
It's actually worse than Rishi Sunak when he lost the election.
Yeah. It is. It's extraordinary.
However,
you wonder, because all he does is talk things down.
Kevin, I mean, this is not good.
No, I'm just laughing at it. He's won an award, though, hasn't he? I mean, for the fastest decline. I mean,
take any victory, even if it's for being unpopular.
There's no strategy.
The subtle strategy is to depress expectations so much that you then surprise on the upside.
I think you're giving it an intellectual veneer it doesn't deserve.
I was trying.
Where is the strategy? Where is the strategy? What is the strategy? I don't understand.
Their strategy is to say all the economy and NHS is the fault of the last lot. By the way, there was a pandemic. To then say, I'm going to do my tax rises right now. I'm going to start spending on the NHS and hope that things improve over the Parliament. Isn't that the strategy?
But the trouble is, I think, that people will judge on results, won't they? And if it's going to take time, and all of these things are going to take a lot of time to come to fruition, because we've got all this money going into the NHS, and yet it seems we're still going to have a winter crisis. And people are going to be going, and they're saying, well, hold on, there are still people in hospital corridors, there are still waiting lists that are sky high.
But you're right, you can't solve any of that immediately, but you have to start work
right now
immediately. And as he said, Keir Starmer, I'll make you better off. I'll fix the NHS and public services, and I'll get Britain working better. You'll be judged ultimately in 4 or 5 years' time.
This lot can't even define what a working person is.
And we've still had more
hopeless
on that. Apparently, Keir Starmer's now said it's if you're worried about the postman coming down the road.
Is he a worker?
The latest definition, because it might bring bad news. I mean, do you think so does Keir Starmer have to wait until these results for his popularity to go up there? And how can he turn that around?
I think that fear the die is cast. He is incapable of raising his game. That speech yesterday, it was a snooze fest.
Look,
apart from being negative, it was a snooze fest.
Politics can be an avalanche. You're either up there or you're down there, nowhere in between. But you can get back up. I mean, it happens. But it does happen.
Doesn't feel like
it's going badly for him at the moment. But if he can focus on the better things they're doing, sound more optimistic, and the light at the end of the tunnel isn't an onrushing train, but is a destination you want to get to, then of course
they need the economy to grow and for living standards to rise and people feel better off and feel the NHS is getting better.
And you have to give people...
that is not where they are now.
You have to give people a story. You need a story about what you're doing.
And is the extra borrowing she's going to announce tomorrow in the budget, is that going to push interest rates up, which will be disastrous?
Going to be the consequences? And it's interesting with this extra money in the NHS then, you know, a lot of people are sort of saying, is this the answer? Because you could pump endless amounts of money into the NHS, but actually, if you don't have the right structures in place, if you don't reform that, if you don't have the right staffing in place, then you're just throwing money at...
But he does, because he's not lost his three goals, if I'm now going to try and remember them, about prevention, better prevention so people don't get sick, get out of hospitals and into the community, and also harness technology, which is what the scanners are
but you need the people to operate the scanners,
you do.
And we know that nursing numbers are down, aren't they?
Money is part of the problem, but it's not... He's right when he says it's not a magic wand.
How quick do they get the scanners in? These things take time. Capital spending takes a long time.
But if you don't spend the money, none of the other reforms will work.
Exactly.
And if you don't start spending now, it's not going to be better in a year and 2 years' time.
And actually, if you've got to treat millions of people every week, which they are, while you're reforming, that makes it more expensive. It's rather like, you know... You're trying to keep the show on the road as you change it.
The NHS is in such trouble because we're getting older and we're getting better at curing people. We are, and that is the problem. And the NHS hasn't changed with the times.
Yes, it has.
Look, it's not enough.
NHS has changed massively. There'll be many people grateful for what it's doing now who will be thinking, hang on, I've got a great GP, I've got an appointment, my life was saved.
If you can see the GP.
GPs see more people than they've ever seen before. That's not to dismiss the poor souls
shouting at the television
who will be ringing and can't get an appointment or being told to come back in weeks.
8 o'clock call, 47 on the list.
But GPs see more people than they've ever seen.
It's interesting, you know, in connection with all of this, because we've got this news, haven't we, about fertility rates dropping to a new record low. The average number of children born to a woman in her lifetime falling to 1.44 per woman in 2023. And the significance of this, of course, is if we've got a much reduced younger population, we're all getting older, we're all needing to have that care funded, to have the increase in health provision funded. And there is that fear, isn't there? You haven't got the working population coming through that's going to be able to support that.
Yeah, like Suella Braverman, when she was, after she'd resigned as Home Secretary, worrying about that birth rate, not wanting the solution to be more migration, she said that what we should do is lift the two-child cap on welfare policy. We should actually support the third and the fourth child, not simply to get children out of poverty, but also to encourage people to have more kids.
Incentivise it.
Which, of course, is not Labour Party policy. Although it used to be.
It used to be.
Hang on. There is zero evidence the two-child cap has reduced family sizes. It's pushed kids into poverty, but it hasn't...
But we know one of the reasons why people don't have... We know one of the reasons why people don't have children, though, or have fewer children, is because they can't afford it.
No, you know what...
Kevin suddenly destabilised by that Suella Braverman is supporting his policy.
Well, no, I always welcome converts. I always... rejoice when a sinner repents.
Islot have had a big row about the winter call-outs. There's a big row about this cap on child benefit. It's a big row in the
What you get is more affluent families tend to have fewer children. And women now want to go to work, they want to be liberated, they don't just want to be tied at home with kids, men too. And it is true, as the fertility rate... The birth rate drops. It's why the country needs migration to keep going.
Yes,
people to come,
but not on the level at the moment. Thank you very much.
The job.
You mentioned winter fuel allowance there. It's not too late for a U-turn on winter fuel, say pensioners. That's according to the Express today. I mean, could we expect any surprises? No.
It is
done.
OK,
so it is too late on the winter fuel reversal.
I think it's probably done for this year, isn't it? Because it would be too late to change it for this year. But, you know, I don't think you'd rule out them looking for some kind of solution.
Winter fuel light down the line.
The Treasury was telling people this is, you know, it's an old tradition that at the end of the budget, the Chancellor comes up with some good news, something unexpected. That's, by the way, where the winter fuel allowance first came from. Free bus passes, free TV licences.
So you think there'll be something at the end?
Well, the Treasury was saying I was reading in the papers yesterday, had been telling people, this is old hat. The idea of rabbits at the end of the budget, that's the old way of doing things. I think if I was the Chancellor, I'd still want something at the end which...
oh, Back to the Future. Yeah,
had a little bit of positivity.
Or
you want some good news.
Get all the doom done in the first budget. Is that a strategy?
But that traditionally, if you go back through history, first budget's a tax rise.
Well, Thatcher's was.
Yeah. That's what they do, and I can get it. Then they got money to spend later on.
They cut benefits in the first budget.
You blame single-parent benefit cuts were terrible, which I inherited from the Conservatives and went ahead with them. But that's what they traditionally do. But break the cycle of gloom and doom.
We ought to also. Looking forward to talking to Wes Streeting later in the programme. We'll talk to him about the health service, about the budget. But we've also got the assisted dying legislation coming into Parliament later in November. It's going to be a piece of legislation not introduced by the government, but introduced by a private member's bill. So this is like a backbench motion. Very unusual for something big and controversial not to be led by the government in this way. Keir Starmer said there would be legislation, but his government is not owning it. We now know that the two cabinet ministers who will have to be in charge of implementing this, if it was to be passed, the Justice Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, and the Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, have both let it be known they're going to vote against the assisted dying. It's a slightly unusual position to have got into. We had Esther Ranson on the programme on Friday, and she was asked about Wes Streeting. How can he be the Health Secretary and take this position? This is what she said.
I was so sad that the Secretary of State for Health, a very, very influential man, wasn't following the government's advice to stay neutral if you're a minister, so that everybody could make up their own mind according to their own conscience.
Now, the Cabinet Secretary seems to have written round telling Cabinet Ministers that they shouldn't be expressing a public opinion or going out and making an argument. I've got to say, if this is an issue of conscience...
It is, exactly.
And it's a very, very big reform, how could you possibly say to the Health Secretary, you're not allowed to have
I think it's absurd.
View?
I think it's absurd.
Why isn't the government doing this?
And I think he's brave to have spoken out like that. And I think he's reflecting the view of a lot of people who are very anxious and concerned about this assisted dying because they worry that where we end up with it.
Wes Streeting has said he thinks that because palliative care at end of life is not good enough currently in the NHS...
Well, it isn't.
People will feel... kind of forced to go down the assisted dying route, and that's what he is worrying about, and that he would like to make it a genuine choice. That's, I think, what he's saying to people. We can ask him about that later.
But faith-based as well, I think, as Shabana Mahmood, which I'm not discussing. It's perfectly...
And the Justice Secretary is a Muslim. She believes in the principle of the right to life. And in principle, she's engaged.
Shouldn't it be more debated?
Shouldn't the government be owning this?
Yes.
But shouldn't the government own it? Shouldn't the Cabinet just give us a view? Shouldn't it be led by the Prime Minister? Why is it being done by the private members?
Actually, a lot of the big social reforms in the 1960s, including decriminalisation of abortion, were led by individuals. David Steele, a Liberal Democrat. So it's not unusual, actually, to have change like this.
If you think about the debate about embryo research, that was led by the government.
Yeah, but I think it would, if the Prime Minister and the Cabinet were leading on it, maybe MPs would feel pressure for voting a certain way.
Exactly.
I think that would be a free vote.
Keir Starmer's in favour in principle. Whether he votes or not on Kim-led the Labour MP's bill is another matter. But I just think if that's Wes Streeting's view, Wes Streeting should express his view. And if when you interview him today, he says, I'm not telling you. I'm just not telling you. It would be unfair. It would be nonsense. If he's Health Secretary and the law is changed, he has to implement it.
Yeah.
That's got to be the position. He can think, no, I wouldn't have done this, but I will now make it work.
Yeah, and if the government lead on it and say that we're backing it, then it puts the Health Secretary in an impossible position.
Well, it then doesn't become
Would he then not have to resign over
it? It's not a conscience issue.
Yeah, and it is a conscience issue.
But in the Cabinet, there's collective responsibility. If the Cabinet decides a way forward... I just feel as though the government's job is to lead, and it's not inconsistent with a free vote on conscience to also for the government to say this is the right way forward for our country.
This would put too much pressure, I think, on MPs.
I think you'd get too much division in the Cabinet. It just couldn't do that now because we know where people stand.
Because it's such a controversial issue on this.
It is, and it's why I don't think...
It's deeply personal.
I don't think it's going to happen sadly in time for Esther Rantzen or any time soon. But I think we need the debate.
Because in the meantime, she is angry about the fact that he's spoken out like this,
I'm not.
isn't she?
I want to know what he thinks. I often think everyone in the Cabinet, all 23, 24, whatever it is now, all say, no, we just trotting out a line. I've always been annoyed about that. I'd rather have more debate. And, OK, we sometimes shout split division, rift and everything, but I'd like people to be honest and tell us. And if Wes Streeton, I'd rather he was in favour, but he was against. I respect him for saying he's against.
And I think polls say that there's a majority of people in the country at the moment would say, let's introduce assisted dying. Do you think that is the view that the House of Commons will take?
No, I don't, actually. I think it'll be much closer than last time. It was rejected by a massive margin, about 400 votes last time. We've got a new Parliament. I think there's too many reservations about it, and with good reason.
I think
with good reason.
I think it's a Friday, and then about 5-6 weeks, isn't it? I think it'll pass, but it'll be a small majority, and you can't get through those private members' bills when they're contentious unless the government gives you time and backs
and then the House of Lords would be very problematic.
I think they're going to jump up and say we're going to have an inquiry or a commission and a widespread consultation, which is probably actually...
It's kind of what I think they should do first.
Yeah, I think it's the way forward.
Because
that's what I mean about leading.
It's so complex.
Yeah. Well, I'm in favour of it, and at the moment, I think the proposal will be if you're judged to have 6 months to live, and a doctor and a judge agree, you can end your life.
People need to know that those safeguards are in place.
Exactly.
That all needs to be spelled out, and people need to know there's not going to be, in a sense, sort of further down the line, any creep on that actually this is set in stone and this won't
And they'll look at what's happened in countries like Canada, where now people who've got mental illness are being offered assisted dying. My God,
there is a
extraordinary.
In their 30s and 40s.
Wicked. I think that is wicked and
if
terrible.
people feel they're going to, or worry they're going to be killed by the state, effectively, that is a genuine concern that has to be
really, really tough
addressed.
It's one of those issues where if it was you in your own life, for me, I would want the choice.
Yeah.
But what I worry about if I was a legislator, a parliamentarian, is whether or not that you can have a law which is safe and would have the right protections in, because there'll be lots of people who you worry would end up being in a situation where things were being done to them, or that they were being pressured.
Pressured, that's the point.
And that is your worry.
But I think that's why they need to be really clear about the safeguards that are in place.
Yeah.
The terminally ill person who's pressured by the son or daughter. Oh, you've had a good run, I mean,
let's have your house.
Yeah, it's very. I've got massive reservations about it.
And the problem is that you can be clear about what the safeguards should be, but the issue is, can you be confident that the safeguards are actually properly being applied in every case?
But then, when you hear Esther Rantzen, your heart goes out to her when she says, if this doesn't go through, then it's condemning her to then take herself off to Dignitas and die on her own. Yeah. That would be her choice.
Yeah, look, other countries have systems that have all those guards in, and they seem to work very well. Canada has... The antis look at Canada because it's such a widespread system, but parts of Australia have different
American
systems.
States do.
Yeah. And also at the moment, if you've got the cash, you can go to Dignitas in Switzerland and end your life. But if you haven't got the cash, you can't go to Darlington or Dundee or anywhere else and end your life. So there's a big inequality there. You don't get prosecuted if you take people to Dignitas. You come back as long as you haven't benefited financially.
You said we should have the debate. The question is, have we had the debate yet?
No.
And if we haven't had the debate, then it feels too early to pass a law.
No,
and the question is, what's the right way to have the debate? I just personally really worry about it.
Yeah, we'll see what happens.
And I don't think the Prime Minister or the Cabinet should be leading on this. I think it should be a proper, open debate amongst politicians, doctors,
I think the
lawyers.
Prime Minister's in favour in principle. Rishi Sunak was in favour in principle. I don't know about Kemi Badenoch. It looks like she's going to be the next leader of the Conservatives. But they can all contribute, but everyone else can. GMB had a disabled young man on recently who was very much against. He's got to be part of the debate. Right. Everybody has to have an equal voice on this.
The voices are heard. Well, listen, we're going to be talking to Wes Streeting about that later. In the meantime, just before we go, Kevin, viewers have noticed that you're not wearing a poppy. Now, I know this is something that we've addressed...
We haven't had Halloween yet.
...in previous years, but would you like to explain your decision why you don't wear a poppy?
Yeah, look, God, I'm just thinking of my mum and my dad, my mum's mum's brother died in the war. Her dad was injured at the Somme, you know, for 4 years. Got a nephew in the RAF. If I wear a poppy, and I always make a donation, if I wear a poppy, I'll wear it in the week of Remembrance Sunday, not before. That's what I do. It's just become elongated now, and the poppy police, the fascistic poppy police, every year go around pointing the finger, why aren't you wearing a poppy? I just say to anybody, go outside their home or look in their workplace, and most people won't be wearing poppies. And it's not because they're disrespectful, it's just they have a different tradition of when they wear them, if they wear them at all.
And I disagree, because I think you should wear it as early as possible to promote it, to make people aware of it, remind people, and also to contribute as early as possible.
Well, you can wear it all year round.
You can wear every day.
Well, you can have poppy pyjamas and a duvet if you want.
Well, I'm going to wear a very special poppy
good
tomorrow.
Good to have cleared that up. We will see you both later. In the meantime, thank you very much for that.